Hello, this is Donna with Sparrowstudios bringing you commentary for I Read and I Learn with Genesis 3 today. And give me just a moment because my puppy wants me to throw a ball for him. Come here, shorty. See. Alright, he should be occupied now. Alright, so we've gone over creation in chapter 1. We've gone over the creation of man and how God rested in chapter 2. And now we've come to Genesis 3, which is famous for being the fall of man. The fall of grace, where sin entered the world. So, I'm going to read the first comment here in my study Bible, which covers chapter 3, verses 1 through 24 to start us off, okay? The rebellion of man and the woman shattered their unity and harmony with earth, animals, each other, and God. And then, so that essentially sums up the chapter in a comment, and then it goes on to have a lengthy commentary on chapter 3, verse 1. Just so you know, this is specifically talking about Satan. But in this, it refers to him as the serpent. So I'm going to read the verse again just to give you some context. Chapter 3, verse 1. The serpent was the shrewdest of all the wild animals the Lord had made. One day he asked the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat the fruit from any of the trees in the garden?" Alright, and here's the context that my Bible gives us surrounding that one verse. Genesis describes the deceiver as a serpent, one of the animals God created. It's also noted in chapter 3, verse 14, which says, "Then the Lord God said to the serpent, 'Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all animals, domestic and wild. You will crawl on your belly and grovel in the dust as long as you live.'" That's the punishment for deceiving Adam and Eve. Okay? He is later identified as Satan, the great enemy of God's people. This is mentioned in Revelation 12:9 and Revelation 20 verse 2. There you go. His manipulative language and his disguise as a serpent, the shrewdest of all creatures, show him as a master deceiver. Satan has various methods for opposing God's people. You can see it in 1 Chronicles 21:1 and Zechariah 3 verses 1 through 2. Hi, Beanie. Deception remains among his key strategies. You can note this in 2 Corinthians 11:3 and 14. The Hebrew term for shrewd, arum, can be positive, prudent, Proverbs 14:8, or negative, cunning, as in this one, as here. On Job 5:12-2. It forms a wordplay where naked, rumim, in Genesis 2, verse 25. Adam and Eve were naked and vulnerable. The serpent was shrewd and cunning. Probably, the serpent asked the woman because prohibition was given to Adam prior to Eve's creation, where we saw it in chapter 2, 16 through 17. Where I read that yesterday. Adam was probably aware of the serpent's cunning, having assessed and named all the animals before Eve was created. Did God really say? The deceiver began twisting God's language to cast doubt on God's goodness. God's original prohibition applied to only one tree. Hi, honey. Not to all or any of them. So, from the very beginning, of chapter 3, we meet the serpent, who we later know. Do you want to come here? No? Okay. As Satan. And he deceives Eve, who manipulates Adam into eating fruit from the tree of life. First Eve does it, and then Adam does it. That's non-negotiable at this point, and I'm not going to get into the debate on Eve and women thing. But it is interesting to me that Satan chose the animal to inhabit that was the shrewdest or the most cunning, and that he chose to go after Eve because it's possible that Adam just hadn't told her or hadn't thought to tell her about the prohibition. Or she was so interested in the fact that she wanted to eat the fruit already that Satan figured out that he could manipulate her. The sad thing about it is up until this point, there had been no sin in the world. Nothing was out of balance, nothing was broken. And in the moment where Eve ate the fruit and God talked to them in the garden, they realized they were naked. And in a previous chapter, I believe it was in chapter 2, or chapter 1, let me double check. Very last. Yeah. The last verse of chapter 2, which is verse 25. And the man and his wife were both naked, but they felt no shame. So, immediately after they were created, and they felt no shame because no sin had entered the garden as of yet. No sin had entered the world. As soon as Eve took the bite of the knowledge of good and evil, she realized that she was naked and immediately felt shame. Satan uses this to cause them to hide from God instead of just coming clean. And when he talks to them, everybody gets punished. Serpent, Eve, and Adam. All three of them are cast from God's presence. All three of them have blame in this. And because of this, they are struck from the garden. And also, death enters the world. I'm going to go back to verse 20. Then the man Adam named his wife Eve because she would be the mother of all who live. And God made clothing from animal skins for Adam and his wife. Now, if you remember, before this, they could eat anything in the garden that was from a tree or from a plant, except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But they cannot necessarily eat the animals, because the animals and Adam and Eve were all living together in harmony under God's rule. So death entered the garden, that sin entered when when Adam and Eve ate the fruit, and then God had to take a life as a sacrifice, not only to cleanse them from their sin of eating the fruit, but also to clothe them. The thing that gave them the most shame was the knowledge of good and evil. And God covered that. He gave them grace and love in the moment, but there was a sacrifice. And then they were sent forth from the garden to live out in the world away from God. So the last note that my Bible shares about this is actually about the